fuck grass. So you can tell I didn't really know how to start this video. Anyhow, yeah, I'm just having really bad allergies today, so... I don't know. I'm looking for a topic to talk about today, and I kind of don't want to do anything political, but at the same time, it's all that's on my mind today, really, and I guess that's fine. I guess that's how a lot of people are sometimes. Like, you want to try to diversify, but you keep coming back to the same thing because you have so much to say about it. And right now, the thing I'm thinking about is the ways the right and the left fight. Because I've noticed something. And I had this note in my list of podcast topics, and I kept reading it. I'm just like, what did I mean when I wrote that down again? And I just remembered what it was. What I wrote was, the left fights for wants and needs, and the right fights for life and death. So, what does this... What do I mean by this? And in what ways is it kind of applicable to everyday life, or what people are really... the way people engage, I would say. And I think this is very important, because it's a very big... I'm getting rid of my phone, hold on. It's a very big issue with the way I see the culture war going, and all these kind of political battles, all these conflicts of left and right, and the way people engage with it. So I haven't told you guys to like and subscribe yet, so I might want to tell you to do that. At the same time, regardless of that, I'm going to continue talking to say that when I say the left fights for wants and needs, I mean whenever the left, and I'm using that very broadly speaking, but whenever anyone who would be considered left-wing would, whenever they want something, whenever they see a need in the world, or a way that things can be made better, or that they believe things may be able to be made better, they'll pick up their pitchforks and they will go and they will protest. They will try to push for laws and legislation. They will lobby. They will go through all of these steps, and they do it collectively whenever they see that something feels imbalanced to them. And there are many imbalances in society. And people have this innate sense of fairness. The left tends to care more about fairness than the right. They kind of if you've looked at studies on the, Jonathan Haidt had his studies on the 5, what was it? The 5, not core values, but it's kind of the 5, like, emotional values that people put their stakes in. For liberals, they're very high in, they're not liberals necessarily, but like people who would be considered left, they tend to put more value in fairness, less in things like liberty, and I think they're high in justice. They might be high in justice, but less in liberty, less in the other ones, but very high in a sense of fairness. People on the right, more for like traditionalism, morality, and just on the right it's much more level. There is some up and down, but in general the right's more level. The left is more one-sided and hyper focused. So that kind of, I feel like that drives them to action more. Whereas on the right tends to fight for life and death, which means the right's not really gonna fight for an issue until they see it as being something that can drastically impede either their own lives or society as a whole. Something that's going to be absolutely devastating. Something like abortion. That's probably a good example. The right will go out, and there will be people who will collectively go and picket outside of abortion clinics. They'll protest, and they will lobby to get rid of that. They think it's morally, ethically, just horrible and wrong. Excuse me. As I was saying, fuck grass. Anyhow, the right has this tendency to be able to. They have an acceptance, more of an appeal to acceptance and respect, to where they'll kind of allow things to happen and take it on the cheek as long as they see that as a viable option. But then when it's something that they don't see as something that they can turn the other cheek on, that's when they're going to be driven into action. So, you're going to raise my taxes. Well, I'll deal with it. Like, I'm going to complain, but I'll deal with it. You want to do abortion, you're going to kill millions of babies. That's what they say. Then it's like, okay, I'm up in arms about this. But the thing is, there aren't that many things that escalate to that level with the right. There's not that many things that escalate to that level with the way that with the way that politics work. Most changes in politics are subtle. They're gradual. And while often the left will try to push as hard as they can for sweeping change, they end up typically getting, at the very least, a little bit of that change that they want. Generally. Because, especially on the right, they don't see those changes as being the life and death situation. They don't see it as this huge thing that they want to do is going to destroy what we are. It's going to destroy our traditions. They see it as, they're trying to change things and they're changing it too much. They're going too fast. They're going too rapidly. We haven't had a chance to do a risk analysis. We want to calm it down, but not necessarily push things in favor of what we believe in. Take gun control, for example. Well, Republicans can often say, okay, well, we don't want all our guns to be taken away, but we can understand the desire for background checks. We can get that. So, to be fair, to be ethical, to respect you, we might be willing to concede a little bit on this ground, or we might be willing to kind of back off a little bit here or there. And I'm not saying that the right doesn't ever get wins with this. It seems like on a state level, the right has been getting a lot of wins lately, actually, in regards to gun rights. Even though on the federal level, things look worse and worse and worse. On a state level, I believe Iowa just got constitutional carry. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics with this. But the point is more so about what gets the people up and engaged. And I think that this is probably the biggest risk to more traditional values within the U.S. is that there isn't a collective motivation to take action. There, as much as there is a sense of individualism on the right, there's also almost a sense of it's not my responsibility. Or a sense of, as long as I put the right person in the place, as long as I elect the right person, then I don't need to do anything else. And that's... Pardon me, I can't really breathe well right now. That's part of the real issue here. I was talking to a lot of conservatives back during the run-up to the election, and frequently I would say, hey, let's go talk to people. Does anyone want to share this post or have any ideas for ways we can create more content? Do things to grow the belief system beyond the insular community that is online right-wing dialogue. And over again, the response that I would get would be, we have the vote. Which, in case people didn't notice after this last election, Trump is no longer the president. So they were wrong. So here's the thing. And it doesn't matter whether there was anything illicit or not during the election, which there's always going to be at least a little bit in any election ever. There's going to be that at least little bit of people trying to game the system. But that's how competition works. There's going to be people who try to cheat everywhere. And that's on both sides. That's universal. That doesn't just apply in the US, it applies everywhere. That's why typically a lot of countries have many safeguards. And for some reason the US is trying to get rid of theirs. Or having trouble defending why they have theirs. We have ours, which is weird. But the point is, it wasn't life or death. Like, it was kind of framed in a life or death way, but the only thing that was considered life or death was whether or not really Trump won. And he did get tens of millions of more votes than he got his first time. By any standard, that would normally amount to a sweeping landslide. By typical standards. Now, what people didn't account for is the anti-Trump vote was about as intensified as the pro-Trump vote, or more so even. I would say 90% of Biden's votes were probably anti-Trump votes, more than they were pro-Biden. That's not including the default vote blue no matter who, just every election, Democrats. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Anyhow, yeah, I just want to bring this up to say, if I'm appealing to more of a right-wing base, because I consider myself a progressive traditionalist, I like to take more action than the typical conservative. I don't want to wait until a life or death situation, and I want to actually move the needle towards more Enlightenment era values. Because I see them there's reasons it's called the Enlightenment, first of all. But I see that as being kind of the pinnacle of what America should be aiming for. And not to say that we were always necessarily fulfilling those ideals, but we created those ideals and we should further approach them. I don't see that as something that conservatives do. I see conservatives as saying, whoa, slow down, slow your roll. We don't want to be doing anything too crazy. Progressive traditionalist is my term for someone who's like, all right, we want to progress towards the ideals of our traditional values. And people could even say that the anti-woke movement is very much trying to do that for when compared to something like critical race theory, where critical race theory is moving back into more of a, I'm not going to call it pseudo-racist. It's a very neo-racist type of ideology where people are defined by their collective groups and by racial identities and sexualities and yada yada yada, whatever critical theory bullshit. But then we have there's almost like a movement that's going against that, where it's more along the lines of, we want to see this stuff stop. We want to embrace societally the values espoused by Martin Luther King Jr., that all men would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. That has become a traditional value, and I would say that was a traditional progressive statement there that MLK made. I'm not going to say MLK was across the board a traditional progressively traditional person, but at the very least, that statement, that ideology, what that one sentence really just nails down is the first words on our Declaration of Independence, that we believe that all men are created equal. And it brings it to a modern context, and it puts it into an actionable state. And I think that is what America really needs. I think that's what America needs from the right. That's where I see myself. And I would like to see more people lean into this sort of mindset. I'm saying a lot lately, aren't I? I hate that. I had a teacher who used to count when we would say in class, so I'm so hyper aware of when I say or like while I'm talking. Anyhow, that's an aside. That doesn't really matter. I'm going off on crazy tangents. I'm really dizzy from like constant congestion these past few days, so I'm gonna see you guys later. Have a good one. James out. God, that's lame.